Hey everyone, it's Mr. McLaughlin back, and I'm going to help walk you through a couple more things that we can do in Unity today. So before we jump into that, keep in mind that this entire scene is a bit of a geometry problem, and you can see some of that right there built into the surface. Now what you need to be able to do is traverse this red line that you see here. And we're going to be doing that by adding in a vehicle asset, or specifically a car today. Eventually, hopefully we'll make this look more like a rover than a car, but this is just how we're going to get started. So if anyone remembers when Elon Musk put his car into space, this is going to be a little bit like that, and the good news is you won't even need to be a billionaire to put a car on Mars today. So let's get started. So I'm going to zoom in on the part of the red line that comes close to this corner where you can see sort of a flat representation of a habitat. And I'm going to go up to Assets and Import Package, and then I'm going to go down to Vehicles. Now this first loading bar should go by very quickly, and then a window will pop up in the top left, and you'll just click Import one more time. This loading bar will probably take literally 1, maybe 2 minutes at most, at least if you have a good internet connection. That's all it took for me. So we'll skip ahead real quick. So now you should see a standard assets folder that shows up down below. It also shows up on the left. In here, we're going to dig a little deeper into vehicles, and then car, and then the prefabs folder. Now we simply want to click and hold on the car asset and drag it into our scene, and we can drop it wherever we want it to show up. A quick tip, one of the best ways to get closer to an object that you want to look at is to double click on it in your hierarchy. So I double clicked on car, and now I'm zooming in by hand to take a closer look at this. And while this doesn't look much like a Mars rover, this car will get us rolling on the surface, and we can always try to make a couple changes to it later. So let's click on Test Play and see how this works. Well, right now, our camera isn't looking anywhere near our car, so let's go fix that. The easiest way to do this will be to click on our car in the hierarchy, make sure we have it selected, then go over to its inspector, and in Transform, click on the little gear on the top right, and then click Copy Component. Now I'm going to select the main camera in the hierarchy, click on the same gear in the Transform, and tell it to paste component values. This will move the camera to be just about in the center of the car, which really isn't a great camera angle, but now we can take our move tool and using the arrows, I don't recommend grabbing it in the middle, it'll be too hard to control. So use your blue and green arrows, they turn yellow while you're manipulating them, and use those to get your camera a little bit behind and above your vehicle, then switch to rotate, and again, don't grab that rotate tool in the middle, grab it on just one specific axis and tip it forward a little bit, probably, move it back, up, rotate it a little bit until you really like the camera angle. And in a little bit, we'll go test drive it, and you can keep tweaking this camera until you really like it. So if we give it a test drive right now, we see one more problem. Well, we did have a camera behind the car, but now the car is driving off and the camera is staying put, and that's not very helpful. So let's go fix that. The good news is this is a very easy fix. Just go to your hierarchy, click and hold on your main camera and drop it onto your car. That will make the main camera what we call a child of the car. So the car is the parent and the camera is the child, so the child follows the parent. We don't even need any code to make this work. Now, we could make a better camera controller with code, but let's go give a little test drive. Now, you can see that my terrain is a little bit difficult to follow, so try to follow your red line and see if the terrain that you painted is going to be an easy path to follow or not. If, like me, your terrain is a little bit bumpy and sends your car flying, then just take this time to go back, look for those troublesome spots, and use your terrain tools to fix them, make them easier to drive. Remember that you need to have your terrain selected for these tools to appear. I'm just going to grab my raise lower terrain tool. I'm going to hold down shift so that it, instead of raising, lowers that terrain down a bit, smooth it out, make it easier to drive on. So it's a good idea to go back and forth and tweak your terrain a little, test play, tweak your terrain a little bit more until you're happy with it feeling maybe like a little bit of a challenge, but not like something that's completely insane and just going to make the player go flying every time they take a drive. Another thing you can do today, you've probably noticed that your car looks pretty dull, so I'm going to go find a texture to put on my car to make it at least a little bit more interesting than just plain gray. So if I want to do something like a carbon fiber texture, I'm just going to search for that, make sure that I get the real image, not the thumbnail, save that image to a folder or just your desktop will do fine, and then I'm going to drag that into my assets. Now I'm going to take just a second to make a folder and actually organize things. I suggest you get in the habit of organizing your assets too, or this project could get a little cluttered and hard to keep up with. So there's my new folder. I'm going to drag in my new texture, and then I'm going to go figure out how to get it on my car. So I'll just click on my car and then expand by clicking on the little arrow next to Sky Car. And I'm going to go down and look at the Sky Car body. Over on the right in the inspector, I see its shader. Now, when I expand the shader by clicking on that little arrow, I can see this area that says albedo. I can either drag a texture in there, or probably easier is to click on the little circle, remember that's called the circle select, and go find the texture that I want. There's a few things in here that could be considered textures, but amongst them I can find my carbon fiber, and there I've got that attached. Now this carbon fiber is just a quick example. Real spacecraft would actually be using like aluminum alloys, so if you want to make it a little more realistic, you could go search for that. But this is kind of just a placeholder, so have a little fun with it and design it however you want for now. Also, if you want to add a little texture to the rims of your car, you can go and find the Sky Car wheel right, left, whichever one, doesn't matter. If you change the texture on one of them, it'll change the texture on all of them because they all share the same texture. So I just took an aluminum alloy and again add that to the albedo setting in the shader for one of those wheels, and now you can see there's a lot more detail in that wheel. One final tip before I let you go, you can see I've just added a new texture to the body of the car, and it doesn't look great right now because it's too stretched out. So I want to change my tiling options. Above secondary maps, you'll see your first set of tiling options, where by default there's a 1 and a 1. I'm changing that up to 4 and 4, and you can see it's really going to change the way that this texture looks because it's repeating it and tiling it instead of just stretching it out across the whole surface. So experiment with some different textures, experiment with tiling them in different ways, and see what you get. That's all I have for you right now, so give it a shot, work hard, and don't forget to share a picture of your vehicle on Mars in the comments to get your grade. Good luck!